high with high volumes. Want to know what sort of a level should one look at to buy at in Venus Remedies? Kunal, what's your take coming in on this particular counter? Definitely, if it's at a 12-year high, should Shanti look to wait before investing in Venus?
Well, yeah, I think I would suggest to wait, but I think it's been an exceptional chart the last 13-14 months from March 2020 lows. The stock was at 20 rupees and now it's perched at 400 rupees. So it's given some extremely strong returns over the last 12-13 months. But the best part about this stock is that the returns have come in more of a stable and a gradual manner. So for example, in the last 5-6 months as well, start of 2021, the stock trend has been very it's been very slow and steady. The stock goes through a period of rally, then consolidates, goes through more of a time correction, completes its mean reversion by touching its critical moving averages, and then the rally resumes again for the stock. So these are classical trends which you watch out for. And I think if that's the case, I don't sense that you should be in a hurry to jump into the stock. I think you should take your own time, let the stock consolidate, come back to some stronger support zones. I think that could be a better strategy for you to enter into the stock.
All right, Gaurang, coming to you on this next one, we've got Soumitra who's asking about Ujjivan Small Finance Bank. He's bought at an average price of around 40, and he says that it hasn't really performed the way that he had expected it to. What would you suggest that he do? Should he hold on to this? If you have coverage, you can comment on it perhaps. And if not, could he switch to something else?
Well, so Alex, we do have a fundamental coverage on Ujjivan Small Finance Bank, and I think the underperformance is not only restricted to Ujjivan Small Finance Bank. Even other micro-stroke small finance institutions have been victim of this re-lockdown and of course the moratorium issue, which is faced by not only small finance or microfinance companies or institutions, but also by banks and NBFCs. We have a target of somewhere close to about 40, 42 if I'm not mistaken. Current levels somewhere around 30 or 32 where the stock is traded at. If the investable amount is there with the investors with a 1.5 to 2 year time horizon, I would advise him to hold on to the investment average at current levels, primarily because we believe sub 30 levels, the downside is extremely protected. But you need to have an extended time horizon given the environment backdrop, earnings concern as far as the gross and the net NPA is concerned, and of course the run rate of repayment of principal and interest. But an interesting institution in terms of small finance category. Stay invested and average closer to 30 or sub 30 levels.
This one is from Bhargav on Isjec Heavy Engineering. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this company's name right, but he's saying that the RSI is 84, overbought state. He's interested to invest in this counter. He wants to know about fundamentals as well as prospective entry levels. But I will come to you, Kunal, on this one. What's your take on this counter? Does it make sense to invest in at current levels?
Well, I'm not sure about investing because the stock has a very limited history, but the last 3-4 days have been extremely strong for this stock. So purely from a short-term view, I think it's a stock which you can look at purely from a trading. I'm not sure of the longer-term trends, of course, because of the limited history. But the short-term charts, the volumes, for example, in the last 3 days. Now, prior to that, the average volumes for the stock was just in the paltries, 80,000 to 1 lakh on an average. But in the last 3 days, the volumes have jumped up to 15 lakhs, 14 lakhs, almost as an average kind of a volume. Today, for example, in the first, in just about an hour or so, the stock has completed a volume of almost 4.5 to 5 lakhs. So that itself tells you that there is a lot of participation from traders into these names. So I think purely on that aspect, I would suggest that you can look into a stock, but take it as more of a short-term trading bet. And I think let the stock gradually evolve into some structurally long-term uptrend. But yes, short-term wise looks very attractive.
Coming back to you, Kunal, on Affle India, what's going on with this stock? You've seen a bit of consolidation over the past couple of sessions. In fact, in today's session as well, it's trading with cuts. We've got several people asking, and particularly we've got Abhishek who's asking about the counter. 200 shares is what he's got at 5,300. He's asking if he should book loss or hold on.
I don't see any reason to panic into this name. The sheer one of the reasons why I believe that the stock could probably have gone through correction is the sheer pace of the rally the stock has seen, from being a stock which was at 1,000 rupees in March 2020 to being a stock which was at 6,000 rupees in just a matter of 12-13 months. I think that's been a phenomenal rise. And when you typically see these rallies, a classical retracement zone is a 50% retracement point. So whenever you see such a kind of a steep rally, if the stock happens to come very closer to this 50% retracement mark, then I believe it could probably be a good strategy to try and buy the stock or average the stock at current levels. Now for Apple, I think the 50% retracement for the stock comes very close to 3,500, 3,700 kind of a zone. So I think it's trying to tap back into the support territory. At this point of time, your strategy should be to try and average on dips, specifically if the stock comes back to that 50% retracement mark.
From Bharat saying that he's bought Rallies India at 326 rupees per share. He wants to add more in the SIP form. He wants to know the view on the same for the longer term. Gaurang, what's your take? Rallies India, he wants to add some more stock in the manner of SIP. Does it make sense for the longer term?
Well, it definitely makes sense, Cheryl, and as a fundamental outlook, we remain positive. Comes from a very strong pedigree. The sector that the company is associated with also has some great potentials of earnings improvement. And whenever you invest in the stock market, I think it is very prudent to have a disciplined approach, and staggered and phased out or buying in parts should be the strategy for long-term investors. So hold on, and whenever you get dips, you should definitely add on to the stock.
Gaurang, I don't know if you have coverage on this, but Sudeep is asking about UFO Movies, and he got in at very elevated levels, but he's held on. Stock is currently at 100 and he's losing a significant amount of ground. I think he invested higher than 300. He's asking if he should average or if he should book losses and switch to something else.
So this is also one of the sector which succumbs to or falls first whenever you have the re-lockdown or lockdown restrictions coming in. Along with that, Alex, you have multiplexes also, which falls first. They are the first casualties, if you will. No specific coverage, but I'll say one thing. When you invest in a stock, and when you realize that the investment has gone against your goals or objectives, then you should take appropriate steps at a time wherein you can digest the losses and you can exit the stock. When you invest at 300 and let the kind of capital erode the way this investor has done, recovery of capital becomes extremely difficult. Forget about making profits on it. Unfortunately, no specific coverage, so can't comment. But just in case, if the investor is thinking about ejecting himself from the investment at either current levels or recoveries, then I think private sector banks like Federal Bank, or even something like L&T Finance and Holding, or in the autos pack Ashok Leyland, could be better alternative ideas.
This one is from Sumol. He is holding Supreme Petro at 760 rupees per share. He wants to know the view on the charts on Supreme Petro. He's only planning to hold this particular stock for the shorter term, so he wants to know whether he should average or shift to some other counter altogether. Kunal, what's your take coming in on Supreme Petro? What should Sumol do?
I think it's been an exceptional chart, exceptional mover. I remember tracking the stock, when it was at 330 rupees or 320 rupees, where it gave that massive, multi-year breakout, almost like a V-shaped kind of a price pattern on the longer-term time frame. And I think from those levels, the stock has gone to a different tangent altogether. So now at 750 plus or 740 plus levels, the stock looks to be more of a stretch. The longer-term RSIs, for example, the monthly RSIs for Supreme Petro are now at 90, 92 levels. Now, these are very, very overbought conditions to try and initiate a fresh trade. So, had you had an existing positions, carried from the earlier profits, then we could have probably applied, some trailing stop loss, levels over here where you can try and hold on to the the stock for much higher gains on the short term wise. But purely as a fresh initiation, I believe that it could be a bit of a risky proposition because of the extremely high nature of indicators. So I think on that aspect, I would suggest to wait, let the stock correct, and go through some sort of a cool off period. If that happens, then I believe it could make an attractive proposition to buy the stock.
Coming back to you on this next one, Kunal, Sadhav Engineering is what Mr. Gowda has got at levels of 70. He's asking if we should book profits or should he wait for more? Are there indications that there could be more?
I think there seems to be more of a potential for this stock. Sadhav, it's just recently given a breakout. I think if I'm not wrong, this month itself is where the stock has confirmed a breakout. It's up 30% or 35% this month itself, trading above that 90 mark. And when I look at it on the medium term kind of prospects, it's formed a cup and handle kind of a breakout. The volumes have shot up significantly high for the stock this month. So both on the price front as well as on the volume front, there are strong evidence of a breakout. And I think if you've bought at levels of 70 odd, you have a very good buffer, to hold on to the stock for further gains. So I would suggest to hold on.
Okay, this one is from Muthu Palani saying that he's bought India Mart at 7,700 rupees per share. He wants to hold this for the longer term. What's your view on the company, Gaurang?
Well, unfortunately, we don't have a coverage, Sharad, so I won't be able to specifically comment on this one.
Kunal, what's your take on India Mart? How is it looking on the charts? Actually, he would also like to hold it otherwise for 2 to 3 years. So how are the charts looking for India Mart?
They're looking quite okay. So, as I said earlier, for I think a stock like Affle, I think even this stock has gone through a phenomenal uptrend in the last 13-14 months, and now is in the process of trying to correct and come back to its mean reversion process. So from being a stock which is at 9,900 or 9,800 to being a stock which is now at 7,000 odd levels. So these are good levels where you can start nibbling in. Your specific view has to be on the longer term prospect. So I think if you are very clear that you want to hold on for the next 2 to 3 years, then I believe that this could be a good starting point for you to try and buy up the stock from a longer term view.
Okay, let's get the next one in. We've got a question on sale, and we've got Gautam who's asking this 120 levels, 3,000 quantity. But I'm going to go to Gaurang on the steel space. Gaurang, once again, you see a couple of the steel names in the top 5 or top 10 of the Nifty 50 gainers. How far do you see this rally going? Should you hold on to something like a sale at levels of 120?
So, Alex, we have positive coverage on the metals universe, and starting with Tata Steel, JSW Steel, Hindustan Zinc, Hindustan Copper, Vedanta, Hindalco. SAIL also we have a coverage, but the levels where the stock is trading, it has actually overshot our targets. And in the last 3 odd months, we've seen significant rally coming into SAIL. If I have to even put the earnings in the backdrop and look at the current price of the stock, then for us it looks a little bit overstretched. If you do want to, on rallies, if you do want to book profits and get into larger names, then I would prefer either Tata Steel or JSW Steel. You can make a switch over here.
Okay, this one is from Mayank saying that he's holding 2,000 shares of Century Inca, which was purchased at 390 rupees per share. 1,000 shares of IG Petro, which was purchased at 600 rupees per share. He wants to know whether he can add on to both the stocks some more over the next 2 years. Kunal, what's your take? Either Century Inca or IG Petro, you can take your pick. Which one would you want to talk about for Mayank?
I think Century Inca, I believe, is a much better and an interesting chart. Cheryl, I think that stock did exceptionally well from being a stock at 100 rupees to now 390, 400 odd levels where the stock is currently trading. As I said, that the markets have been following a pattern of almost a V-shaped recovery into so many of these stocks which have corrected from those 2018 highs, specifically the mid-cap names. Now for Century Inca as well, the 2018 high but the stock was around this 400 to 450 range. Now, in this V-shaped recovery, the volumes have improved significantly high, which means there is a much better participation for the stock from a longer term basis. So purely on that aspect, that a better break past about that 450 level, which was a earlier resistance. I think on all of those aspects, it looks very interesting, and I would suggest to hold on if you've already bought Century Income.
Coming to you, Kunal, for the next one, we've got a number of viewers who are asking about Bliss Pharma. This appears to be Bliss GVS Pharma. It's a small cap company that has, if you have coverage, can you let me know what the near-term charts are indicating? Both the viewers that have asked this are in profits. Should they book profits and move on is the question.
I think they should move on and try and book profits and move on. The near-term charts are not very attractive for Bliss GVS. In fact, start of 2021, the stock was at 220 levels, and now it's at 100. I think there was a period just about a month or two back when the stock was even sub 100 levels. So there's been I would say, a decent short-term bounce which have ensued in the stock from the last two months or 3 months of price action low. The worry which the charts are indicating as of now is that the MACD is consistently going below the zero barrier. I think that's a bit of a worry, because when you typically see these MACDs going below the zero barrier, it generally indicates that there is inherent weakness in the stock price trends. So I think on that aspect, I would suggest an exit on Bliss GVS.
Is asking about Laurus Labs, wants to know whether one can enter at the current market price for the longer term. Gaurang, how does Laurus Lab looks? Can one look at investing at current levels for the longer term? Longer term prospects look good for Laurus?
Well, Cheryl, we had identified this particular stock as stock of the month. This was about 2.5 months back, and post that, I think the stock has seen some significant upside. If you have investments at lower levels, you can continue to hold on. But if you want to make fresh investments like this investor, then our sense is that you should definitely wait for some corrections to come in. But definitely pharma and IT are the two sectors, I think, which will hog the spotlight for at least a couple of years' time. So use this to get into it.
Okay, Gaurang, coming to you, Muthoot Finance, we've got Neeraj who's bought 200 shares at 1,300. He's in the green right now, but he's looking to hold for 5 years. Is that a long enough time for a sector that, and particularly for a company that is a market leader in a sector that seems to be relatively sanguine in the context of the stress that one would think is there in the lending space?
So we are positive on Muthoot and Manapura both, Alex, and I think the earnings gone by for the last quarter, last financial, was much better than what the estimates were. And if you're looking for a 5-year time horizon, Alex, then I would go to the extent to say that don't stop your investment at whatever you have. Try to, save more and invest more on dips. With a 5-year time horizon, I think you will have a sizable number of shares, and along with that, a decent return on your investment.
Shanmuga on Hindalco has 100 shares, which was purchased at 167 rupees per share. Is bought, wants to know whether can hold this particular counter for the next 1 year. Kunal, how are the charts looking for Hindalco? Makes sense to stay put with the holdings?
I would suggest to hold on. I think it's been an exceptional mover. I remember this phase when Hindalco was stuck at 66 rupees for quite some time. But the moment the stock broke past about those levels, it started a very strong and a fierce rally for itself. Right now as well, the stock is going through a patch of consolidation, which I believe could probably end pretty soon, for the stock. So these are the kind of stocks where it's very difficult to preempt a breakout. You just have to probably try and buy these stocks on corrections and then let the breakout happen, more of a natural basis. So I think that's a better strategy for something like Hindustan Copper. And I think the stock has also corrected from 190, 185 zones to current levels of 180, 145 as well. So it's an attractively priced stock as well technically, and it's confirming some consolidations or mean reversion process as well. So I think on that aspect, I would suggest a hold or a buy on Hindustan Copper at current levels.
Okay, view, Kunal, on Engineers India is being sought by Yash Chaudhary. He's asking whether to enter at current levels.
Well, I think it's been of a tough stock. Frankly, I tracked the stock quite closely, but I think closer to 86 or 88 mark is where the momentum seems to fizzle out every time the stock tries to touch back to those levels. So I think on that aspect that the stock faces a bit of an inability to break past about that 88 hurdle. I would suggest a wait and watch approach. Let the stock confirm a breakout about that 88 mark. I think that could be a better strategy. For some stocks, it's very much required and essential that you try and wait for the breakout to happen for the stock to confirm an uptrend for itself. But I think at this point of time, it's a bit of a tricky situation at 80 rupees for Engineers India. I would suggest a wait and buy only about that 88 level breakout.
This one is coming in from Giant. Is holding 1,000 shares of DLF, which was bought at an average price of 286 rupees per share. Wants to know whether he should continue holding on to it or should look to exit DLF. What's your take coming in on DLF, Kunal? We've seen the realty space also pretty abuzz. We've had a lot of commentaries coming in that the realty sector will see a further uptick as well. Do you stand by the view, and what should Giant do with DLF?
Well, yeah, I think it looks like that the entire real estate sector is in for some sort of a stronger revival on the long-term charts. But a stock like DLF is a bit of a high risk trade because the beta nature of the stock is significantly high. We've seen the stock going through very stronger phases where the corrections have been very strong and the recovery as well has been quite remarkable. So I think it's going through such a process, very, very similar. The stock is trading above its some key support levels. So that's the, I would say, positive aspect about the charts for DLF. Like 260, 265 has been a major support for the stock in the medium term. So I think till the time the stock is trading above those 260, 265 support level, you can hold on to your trade over here. Then I would suggest that wait for it from a horizon of at least 1 to 2 years and don't keep this more of a short term trade.
Kunal, a very quick view from the OMC pack. Actually, we've got Peyton who's asking about oil PSUs. So that's a pretty broad ambit. Does anything look attractive to you at the current market price?
So I think out of the three names which we typically track from the OMCs, I think it's IOC which looks very attractive to me on the short term as well as in the medium term charts. In fact, on the correlation aspect as well, generally BPCL was one of the few stocks which tend to start or kickstart a stronger rally for the sector. But somehow this time around, you've seen IOC surprising quite well, and that has leaded the charge from the front. The correlation indicators have also improved significantly for IOC as compared to its other peers. So if I have to pick and choose from a short-term trade, I would pick up IOC from the sector.
All right. With that, we've come to an end of the query segment. Thank you, Kunal, as well as Gaurang, for joining us on ET Now, giving us your take on the tourism sector as well as resolving the viewer queries. And on that note, we'll slip into a break in this edition of Buy Now, Sell Now. Stay tuned, more on the other side, so don't go anywhere.
New Jaguar F-Pace, hard to forget.
Flexibility